But this whole strike thing is messy. My biggest pet peeve, and that's mild, for where everything is right now is that everything is spoken, and this is a generalization too, is being spoken in vagaries, generalities, and assessments. So there's no specificity on what is being sought, offered, and without that, you can't have enough information to make an educated decision for yourself, for your family, for others.
Mm. That hit my heart. That hit me right in the middle of my chest when you.
It makes me vibrate just saying it,
Yeah.
because without that information, how do you stand up for yourself? That way you're standing up for what somebody else believes should be the thing, and you just follow the sheeple this way, you follow the sheeple that way, but you can't be your own sheep.
What about you? Have you checked in yet, Ian? I mean, we checked in when
Sort of.
Mark got here, so can you check in for Mark?
Check in for Mark. Yeah, so over the past, I guess it's been 3-4 weeks ish, I've been I took a job. So I took a contract, a casual contract. So basically, I'm working 3 days a week to supplement my income, because it's just not sufficient to maintain the lifestyle that we have. Even though it's not extravagant, it's just expensive. And then you walked in on this bit of the strike conversation about where my wife and I are at. Mind you, I'm not affected, but which she calls me yesterday and is like, "Hey, I'm conflicted. I don't know what to do." And I'm trying to help guide her by asking her what feels right for her. So yesterday, she crossed. Today, she's picketing. But she's got to find her way in this, and I'll support whatever that is. But what I was saying to Karen when you walked in was that it's just frustrating because everything is being spoken in generalities or assessments. There's no specifics being provided for us to make educated adult decisions on our careers and in our work and for our families. And that's hard. That's frustrating for me. That's what gets me all kind of riled up inside, is give me specifics. I want you to ground this somehow for me so I can make a decision. Let's not speak in they're out to get us and we're all together, and they're not providing, they're not meeting our demands. Well, what are they? What have you been offered? Let us make a decision. This is supposed to be democratic, is it not? But is it democratic when a small variety, a small chosen few make the decisions on our behalf?
So much there.
And that's just my point of view. What about my neighbors here, my neighbors there, my friends who are crossing, and what they feel is or not crossing, but going, and they feel like they have to be there, and that doesn't sound right either.
But you're giving us so much in here. You're giving us so much because you said that's just my point of view. But that is the very definition of an assessment. That is the very basis of an assessment. So what you described earlier is there's no specifics. Well, that's the opposite, or that's the definition of generalities and generalizations. So in the absence of those specifics that you are so desperately seeking, what you're saying or not saying is you need clarity. Because we talk about clarity and we talk about how we achieve clarity in our relationships in that phase. So in the absence of those specifics, there's no clarity. And when there's an absence, when there's a void, it's like when there's a void in air somewhere, air is going to seep in from everywhere it can. So everything's going to come in where it can, and it's not necessarily where it should. So you don't have something that's usable. So those specifics, whether they are difficult or easy, whether they're positive or negative, whether they're big, whether they're small, it doesn't matter. As long as there's specifics, as long as they're clear. You said it. They are not taking care of us. We are to get, what does that mean? So those are points of view that end up being decision factors on people's actions, but based in generalizations and assessments. And in the absence of yourself challenging it, or somebody challenging it in a compassionate way, because here you gotta have compassionate in there, then they become fact. And then they become the basis for which we make our decisions or don't make decisions. And that's when we get conflicted, because not making a decision is the situation you described. We're conflicted.
What's coming up for me as you speak, Mark and Ian, is with absence of specifics, for coping strategies, we create our own. Maybe not grounded, but it's just to center ourselves and balance ourselves. And then for some of us, we believe that to be the fact, and we hang on to it very tightly then, because it's like being in this very messy, unknown generalization place is not sustainable. It's not comfortable. And then the thing that came up for me, and I've been feeling myself these last little while because of my work with public servants, is there's a formed opinion coming at me that, we know there's not a lot of specifics behind it. And I can feel myself either tighten or soften my reaction. Either I'm I'm feeling that resistance. And so just practicing staying open and soft, because staying curious and asking questions opens up blind spots. Because I think that's Ian, I think what's going on is there's so many blind spots right now that we don't have enough information, whether we want to call that, or that it's very, very, we need to open up so that we know what our blind spots are, so we can ask those specific questions. And you said something about, so that you have your own position. You talked about not wanting being sheeps, but not losing your individuality. I love that. I feel like, you don't want to be the black sheep, and being white sheep, you're kind of like there's no distinction. So how do we make sure that we allow that inclusivity of color and get clarity? I love that, what you said, Mark, which is really what assessments are, because 90% of our conversations are assessments. They're not bad things. They formulate our way of movement, our thoughts, perspectives, our decisions, our choices. So we need to make them visible, so we can talk about them and to say, is that useful? How do I know that? That's the question I'm asking myself these days. But how do I really know? Is that really a fact? Is that really a truth? Is that really something that I care about now, where I am in chapter 3 of my life? Like, I'm having to hold my beliefs and my perceptions and my assessments and take a good look at them and say, is this useful for where I want to be in my life right now? Thank you. You served me really well. But is it time for me to let that go? Or jeepers, this is the one that's been holding me back for 60 some odd years. Is this time to let it go? And how do I let something new in? So it's messy times. All three of us have talked about this. Disrupting times.
The way you started that with the being open and remaining soft versus the tightening. And it's interesting, because when I'm in the midst of, let's say, this not knowing and the freaking out, that's the tightening side. But when Julie came to me asking for my help, I felt like I was sitting in that open, soft, inquisitive, curious side, which for me is super helpful. And it's also helpful for her, because then she can explore what she's all tight about. it's almost like that. It's an invitation for the person who's wound up and spinning in their whatever. That open space allows it to be kind of loosened and explored, and then for them to even move into that softer space where they feel like they have agency again in the decision they want to make or how they want to approach something. But in that initial wound upness, it's not possible.
A saying comes to mind that was said to me I heard this the first time, and I go, what is he talking about? And he went like this, and you heard me say it before: perception without opinion and observation without judgment. So if you can get to a point where you perceive things without forming an opinion on them, and you can observe things without making a judgment on it, and if you can exercise that muscle on assessments and generalizations, because that's what I'm describing, and in an intentional way during that exercise or during that muscle activity, intentionally not make any assessments or judgments on a specific topic or the specific topic at hand. If you can practice that, it's amazing when you do it intentionally how you can get comfortable in not knowing, because that's where I'm not comfortable, not knowing. I got to know, I got to gather information, whatever information is supposed to be, and then I'm making opinions and judgments on whatever's at hand, close. But if I can be intentionally saying no judgment, no opinion, and practice that, then it's amazing, Ian, how it contributes to what you just described as that opportunity to be open to exploring, and how it usually comes up. I used to describe that as, well, it'll come to me. But actually it'll come to me meant that I was open to something that I hadn't considered. And for that, I had to get the busyness out of my head, that committee, and saying, okay, shut up for a minute. I don't need your judgment or your opinions up there. Just park them for now, put a pin in them, and see what develops. But when you can practice that as a practice, not easy. Try to observe something without forming an opinion. Try to watch the news without forming an opinion on the story that's before you, or judging it. Very difficult. We can talk about current affairs. Try not forming an opinion on the current topics going on with employees all over the country. Try not forming a political opinion. It is not easy. But look at what happens when you do manage to park that for a minute, how you're open to new perspectives.
I think you said something really important in the last sentence. I don't know if it's humanly possible to not, but the capacity to park. I think that's some muscle development. And to notice it right away and say, because it and be able to push it to the side, and then the practice that we're creating around for our people that are practicing coaching conversations is, what are the questions? How do you make sure, like, how do I stay engaged? What are the ways in to stay curious, to notice that, but let it go? And then what can I say that will keep me soft and open? So I'm curious, Mark, what are some of the things that you've done that have helped you in the midst of something that's pretty intense that you're relating to be able to soften and ask questions and stay curious and stay open? And I want to ask you, Ian, because you just went through it with Julie.
The power of the pause.
Okay.
The power of the pause. Being able, when Karen, you talked to us about taking a breath and those breathing exercises that I used to hate at the beginning, but now that I see the value in them, the pause that gives you is just very simply that break. for me, that is for me the biggest tool against making generalizations and assessments that aren't based in facts. The pause.
And what's going through my mind is it's not about me. It's not my decision to make. And if I trust my main pillar of coaching is that they have the answer, I just have to remain open long enough to serve them in finding that answer. So I can park my judgments, my perceptions, and what I feel is the right thing to do, but that's for me, not for anybody else. So it's serving them and finding their path, not the other way around, not in helping them find my way to my answer. Because I don't have to live the result of whatever that decision is. I never have to live that.
I want to hear Karen, but I want to tell you where my mind went when you said it's not about me. I hear that, and I accept that, but my mind went to, well, what about when it is about me? And the answer was still not about me, because if I'm of service, if I make it not about me, then the answer seems to be clearer. I tend to be more motivated when I'm of service. When it's about me is when I'm usually conflicted. But very often it's not about me, because if I keep being in this state that I'm in, whatever it is right now, I can't be of service to others. So if I make it not about me, then I better snap out of it. Aaron, I want to hear it. You got something to say.
Well, it's always helpful when you get to hear, from each of you what's value, what you do, and kind of the mindset is what I'm hearing, and a practice is what I'm hearing from each of you. But what I recognize is that not taking anybody anywhere, that letting people be deep and to broaden where they are right now, to get curious about, like, how's that feel? What really matters right now? Like, really allowing them to, like, steep the tea. We're often, only an inch deep into how we're really feeling about something that matters to us. Because no one's given us the space, the pause, the silence, like just saying nothing after somebody says a whole bunch of words, and letting that sit for a minute and seeing what else shows up. So the pause for me is not just, even for me to calibrate, it's always both sides. So I love that. And then both of you saying it's not about me, this generous space of coaching that says, I'll attend to, if I need to say something, if I'm reacting, I'll look after myself, but right now this is for them. And the third thing I will say is, and we're going to hopefully do a short video on this one, is gives us the time when we pause to transition to coaching the person, not the topic. Because we just really get naturally invested in the topic. And so when we say it's not about me, it's about them, what we're really saying is coaching the person in their topic so they can really have a good sense of what it is, have a way to empty their cup, and also to talk about what's going to be the next move that's going to support them right now. That's a big unlearning for me in the way, we typically listen in conversations. Which I think stems back to your statement, which I always forget, Mark. So if you just repeat it: perception without judgment.
Perception without opinion.
Opinion.
Observation without judgment.
Right.
The way it was presented the first way was perception without opinion, observation without judgment. That is the way.
That is the way. Okay.
That is the way. my first thought was the way to what? But then thinking about it, and it stuck with me.
And I would add a tagline that we use: people change by the way you listen to them.
Mm.
So this practice in holding space is, and just listening, and the way you listen, it's powerful. It feels like it's this goes back to the inaction belief of listening, where there is such a powerful practice of supporting people in listening.
I'm not sure how to voice this. So when I was talking to Julie about this the other day, it kind of, I guess it speaks to the being aspect of it, trying to understand where they're at, but for them, not for you, but for them. And she made the comment that I feel like I'm Switzerland.
Mm.
And I can make that mean whatever, like I have my own meaning of what that means. But what does it mean for you? So that they can hear themselves speak to where they're at and how they're being and how they want to be in it. And that has tremendous value for them, not for me.
Again, there's an example of a generalization where you're so now asking them, what does that mean to you, brings it down to specificity. And then they can look at that and say, is this serving me right now? Is this where I want to be? Or do I want to let that go? And if I did, what would I let in? Cool.
So where do we go from here?
I don't know if you had a chance to listen to the working with assessments and generalization practices that you did, Ian, and they're really good. They're really good practices.
Yeah, I watched them this morning.
So those are great things to look at, as in how do this is really, I think for us, it's important that we don't think we have to do this to others. Start noticing your own first. Use these practices for yourself. Build your muscle building around noticing yourself and how assessments influence you, what they open up and what they close down. Notice how often we speak in generalizations and practice bringing it down to specificity. Like that, just building your own capacity is so useful, because this is a big part of our language. It is a normal way we speak and listen. So just building that awareness for yourself is huge. So I think those two practices are wonderful to build our own capacity first.
And I think what's interesting about that is that way you're able to own the way that you're showing up and the words that you're speaking and how you comport yourself. Because it's easy to say, oh, they're in the wrong. I wish they were doing all of this, and put the ownership on them and how they're being and acting and whatever. You can't control anybody else other than yourself. So if you can start to be the owner of what you speak and recognize that, oh yeah, I am speaking in assessments, or I am speaking in generalizations right now. And even when we were talking in our check-in with each other, I'm like, this is a generalization, but it's coming out. Like, I know it's a generalization. At least you can then see it and reflect on it and decide whether or not that generalization serves the conversation or not, or if it's actually, taking you down a rabbit hole. Mark heard a metaphor.
No, this is just, how do we do this when we're in holy shit mode? Because when I'm in holy shit mode, this is hard. I mean, I am opinionated and judgmental to the exponential degree. Is like, lay it on. This is the way it is, and this is my assessment on it, and I'm right. And if you challenge me, then I'm going after you. So I'm talking when we're in truly holy shit mode. So that's why I said earlier that the pause helps, because it's like, okay, is that really true? Yeah. And if it's really true, okay, it's really true. Is it really helpful? And where do we go from here? has been tested in the past few weeks. I think I failed more than I succeeded, but it's a practice again.
It's not about eliminating them. They're here.
No, it isn't. It's about, so Ian said it earlier, it's about challenging them and being aware that they're there. And okay, fine. What do I do about it?
I read this. I actually studied with this woman, but she wrote a book called Fully Alive. And I love the 4 things as a practice around. So you could, like, the thing for you to start to notice. So your awareness, you really build the awareness of how regularized this is in our language. For yourself, start with yourself. And it was name it, claim it, choose it, change it. So that if you name it and claim it, you can, that's mine. I said that in that moment, even when, I was not in my happy, good place. My best self didn't show up. I had a lot of reactions to that. Ditto, done that many times, still do. Working hard on doing that less with pause. But it just allows me to continue to practice changing it, choosing it, and changing it. And I'm claiming it's mine. And I have some unlearning to do. I want to let that go. I want to practice doing that less. And I want to do this more for me right now where I am in my life. So I'm trying not to beat myself up, Mark, when I act up. Because that part of me that still is present and not who I want to show, how I want to show up on a regular basis. But I love that practice of noticing it and really claiming it and choosing it and setting up practice to change it.
You've brought this up in many conversations, and I've never been able to copy it in time. So I appreciate you bringing it back up. So what? So let me give you my take on it, of what I understand. So naming it means to identify it clearly. Claiming it means to take responsibility for it, and my responsibility for it, and might even help me get to what I actually control on it. And choosing it is simply the desire to actually address it, and then changing it is the action.
Yeah.
I like it.
Easy to remember.
May actually use it.
Can't change what you can't see. And it's
what happens, Ian, when you see it and you deny it? I see a whole bunch of things that I do and then I deny. Nope, didn't happen. Nope, that's not me. Nope, not my fault.
I find those instances tend to come back and bite me in the ass.
That's why
like once you realize that it's something that doesn't serve you, like, I think that's when you start beating yourself up a little bit. And I know this already, and I know if I have a beer at night, I'm not going to sleep well. And like, once you know better, you do better. But if you ignore it, then I think you just feel worse. So at least with the name it,
I like name it, claim it, choose it, change it.
At least you've got a roadmap. Okay, I named it.
Sequential.
What do I want to do? Okay, yeah, this is how it affects me. Now, what do I want to do about it? And this is my plan for how I'm going to do differently.
The tough one is claiming it. For me, the tough one here, I'm thinking of specific situations right now. I'm busy up there. You see the hamsters going. Claiming it for me is going to be tough.
Yeah.
Because I have to be brutally honest with myself, and they go, hold on, not everybody else's fault.
But I think that's where you'll get the reminders. So I think the first one is the light bulb that you see it. I do drink too much, blah, blah, blah. Like, and then you drink too much, and then you drink too much, then you drink too much. But I'm just, as soon as you hit that wall so many times, there's going to be a moment where you say, something's got to change. For me, it would probably be finances, right? Like, yeah, okay, this month's been rough. Okay, paid the bills, figured it out, whatever. And now the next month is worse. And the next month is worse. At some point, something has to change. So for me, that had to be, okay, I've got to get a job for now. And that'll be I had to claim that something was wrong for me to get the fixes in place. It's still not fixed, but it's better. But if I didn't see it, claim it that it was an issue, what's the next one, Karen?
Choose something.
I made a choice that, okay, I'm going to start looking for a job. And yes, I took a job. I still have to figure out what's the sustainable version of this going forward. However, I've taken action away from the ignoring.
When I started my chapter 3, I don't know how much of this you're going to keep, but chapter 3 was April 1st. And I was telling Ian, I was really proud of myself. Right. And, when I went to the gym for the first time in 3 years, I remember I wanted to put somewhere on social media, there's always a day one of day one. It was hard. Day one. There's a day one to day one. And that's the claiming it and changing it. I've been in the, top level, claim it, name it, 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 claim it, and then choose. And then no, seriously. I mean, I was like a pendulum, boop, 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 which is what you were kind of describing, Ian, right? We go back and so you gotta be. You just stay there, but day one of day one. I'm on day 3 weeks of day, but it was, I realized, just that's an important one. I want to remember day one of day one.
Okay, here comes the metaphor. So the question is, how do you move a mountain? And the answer is
one rock at a time, one pebble at a
one
time.
shovel at a time. But you got to pick up this darn shovel. And that's where we tend to go. And I think that's what you're saying, Karen. Okay, gotta move that mountain one shovel at a time. And we can all say, yep, all right. Nobody picks up a shovel. It ain't happening. So
and it's every day. It's your mindset. I said to my husband yesterday, it could, because we, cars, there was some things going on with vehicles. So it was easy for me not to go to the gym because I have to drive to the gym. I'm not, there's no bus, there's no walking, it's 30 kilometers away. And I said, there's so many things I can make excuses all day long about not going. I had an opportunity. I had a vehicle for a period of time. And so just that intentionality, you used a word earlier, Mark, that intentionality of just saying, no, I'm choosing it today. And I'm going, that's it. Yeah.
If the gym is 3 kilometers away, I can see so many reasons, so many excuses not to go.
Yeah. Anyhow, it's just, this is very cool. I like the practices, and I do really, really like the videos. I don't think we need to redo a short one, but I have no idea how you're going to condense this one down.
I have no idea either.
I'm sorry, but this was important. I'm sorry. Here, I'm apologizing for something I'm part of. It was a good conversation for all of us. I think we needed it.
I know I did. I definitely felt disconnected, especially the last 3-4 weeks.
Me too.
Well, thank you for today.
Yeah.
Thank you.